BizTRAQ is going to be it's a flagship product that we built. This is our own product, and this is a huge product. It's a what I call a business management solution, or you can call it, some lightweight ERP. This is an application that you can use for everything within your business. It's something that you can manage your entire business with. That's the whole idea, that you can actually put your data, your information, your documents, and your business processes all together in one single application. So, for example, in our case, we want to use it for, we use it for everything. So we have, by default, we have a few modules that come up. One is home. Home is just this dashboard. All right, on this dashboard, you can have this announcements. Anyone which has users that have announcement access, they can add announcements. The announcement can be anything. The announcement can be, BizTRAQ training today at 11 a.m. CST. Now you can put a start date and you can put an end date. Now what this means is that this announcement will show up between those two dates. If the dates are not there, this announcement will not show up. So this announcement now is not going to show up for users until we hit those dates, the start date and end date. And so this is what the announcement is. This part is just a calendar which shows you all your expirations. Anything that's expiring whether it's a document, it's an item, anything that's expiring is going to show up in this calendar. It's going to show up 90, 60, 30 days before. This is just the ticket status, how many total tickets, how many of the tickets are assigned to you, that's your status. And this will show you all the tickets, latest tickets that are assigned to you, basically. This is your tickets. Anything that has your name on it, it'll show up here as well. So that's just a dashboard for now. On this side, we have what we call, each one of these is what we call module. This high level stuff is what we call modules. And below these modules, anything that we do here, what we would typically call submodules, we call them libraries. Each one is the one that we refer as library. So this is a records module, which has a construction library, an insurance library, a facility permits library. So that's what we call these submodules, libraries. So I want to make sure that we have the nomenclature right, because when we talk about this with the customers or when we have documentation, we all understand what these modules are. These are modules, and internally when we create these submodules, these are called libraries. What we also have is we have multiple default modules that come up with. We come up with assignments is a default module that's built in within the system. We have contacts is a default module that's built within the system. And then beyond that, we have all the other modules can be made. You can actually custom build those modules. So like this marketing and assets, sales, you can now go ahead and create those modules depending on what you want to do. Right now, when you have a brand new customer, only you'll see home, assignments, and contacts. And if it's a healthcare customers, you'll also see maybe HIPAA. Rest of them, you actually can build these modules. On the right-hand side, we have two things. One is here where you have the log out information, the person who's logged in information. You can reset your password from here. The sites also show you at the top right who's logged in and which customer, what customer is, what is your customer name. So in this case, it's a demo site. It's called demo. If I was logging in as Cobate, it would be Rafik Hazi Cobate. If I was, people who are logging into Trialta, they'll see Rafik Hazi Trialta. So it all depends who you're logging in as. So it's going to show you your username. This BizTRAQ icon, if you hover over this BizTRAQ icon, it tells you the product version, what the version number is. Now, a lot of times what happens, we actually put out a new version. When the customer opens up their browser, it's already got a cached copy of the BizTRAQ site. So their version will be the previous version, but they may not have downloaded the new version through their browser. So what you may want to tell them is whenever they're there, and if you know that this is not the latest version, all you have to tell them when they log in, just go ahead and refresh. And whenever you refresh at this main screen, you will get the latest version installed. It'll get downloaded because it's a Angular-based application, web-based. There is a component that gets downloaded in the browser. So you just have to make sure that they're actually looking at this browser version. So that's very important from a support standpoint. Now, the second icon that you see, the gear icon, is where all the settings are. So if you are the admin, you will see this icon. If you're not the admin, and if you're a regular user in the system, you will not see the gear icon. Gear icon is where we have all the system administration for that particular client. So they have settings where you have all your settings, general settings, email settings, custom modules, and I'll go through some of these things one by one. General settings is where you have your notification, system-wide notifications. If you disable this, then no notifications will be sent out to any user in the system. This is for that particular customer. The uploadable files. Now, this is a very important one. We have, by default, we have certain extensions that we allow to be uploaded or saved in the system. If, for example, they try and save a file which is called, XLS, not XLX, or if they try and save a log.log file, or if they try and save some other file extension, they will not be able to save those file extensions. So if they have a need to save some additional file extensions, all you have to do is just go and just put those in there. Like in this case, if I do log, so any file with a log extension will then now be able to save this file extension. Okay. Now we also want to make sure we don't allow people to do like VBS files and EXEs. Those are, I think, by default. We don't allow any of those files to be put up there. Some of the extensions are automatically not going to be there because we don't allow those. This upload logo, if a customer has a logo in this certain format, we allow them to upload their logo. So when they log in, they will see their logo. They won't see the BizTRAQ logo. So they can also have a custom logo that they can put up there. That's for this general settings. Email setting is that the customer, and this is what I would strongly recommend, that when we have new customers, we want them to use their own email server for sending out emails, because right now all these emails from the system are being sent out from using our default email account. So they can then set up, if they have a Microsoft Office 365 account that they can use, we just put that information in there, whatever the Office 365 port number and the username, password, or it's a Google account, a Gmail account, we can put that information in and we save it. And you can test the email and it'll send out an email. So this is what this SMTP is. But if you say use BizTRAQ system default, that's what they're going to use. Custom modules is what we are calling when you want to add a new module on the left-hand side. This is where you're going to go and create a new module. So for example, if you want to create a module called, let's see, we have all these. You want to have a patients module. So you want to say, okay, I want to create a new module called patients. You can just go ahead and click on that and say patients. You can put a description in and you can put an icon in. Now these icons are just by default, we've got these 6 icons in there. We'll add more. But if you want to add some more icon, all you need to do is click on this and click on find new icons. It opens up these icons. So all what you have to do is pick an icon and just say, okay, this is going to be accounts circle. So this is called account_circle. And if you put the name in there, accounts_circle. It shows that icon. Now, as soon as you do that, this is where it tells you, okay, what permissions do you want to give the module by default permissions, which means that once you set these default permissions for that module, any library or submodule that you create below that module will by default take these permissions. So if I allow everyone access, allow access means everyone will be able to read anything in this. If I give them all permission to all users, insert, update, and delete, which means everything that they'll be able to insert, update, and delete. So you can, just like typical Windows application permissions, you can actually set them up where you say, okay, I don't allow them to delete, I don't allow them to update, but I only allow them to insert, which means that they will not be able, any item that's already created, they won't be able to update or delete, but they can add a new item and they'll have access to it. So that's what this permission structure is. If I didn't set up permissions, no one will be able to see that module because I have not allowed access. So when you don't allow access to that particular user, they will not see that module at all. So any module or submodules below that, they will never see that module. So let's allow people access so we can have access. So now you see I can see patients too because I didn't have access to that also. Now that I've created a module, I can now right click on it and add child, which is where I'm adding a submodule. And this is where I'm going to say, okay, all patients, let's say all patients. You see the default permissions are already applied to that module, submodule or library. So now that I've done that, you see I've now created all patients. And this is now the library that's by default created. We have default stuff in there, which gets created a new, and you can add a new, what we call record or an item. That's how you add a new record and an item. So we'll get to this later. And this may be this will be a multi-part training session, but I'm going to go high level right now. So that's how you create custom modules. That's how you create submodules or libraries within the system. Then you have a menu. Remember, I told you that if you don't give permission to people, they will not be able to see the module. You can do the same thing with submodules, that if I don't allow myself, you can right click on it, go to properties on the submodule or library, and you say, okay, I'm not going to allow this person to have access. If I take this out, when I log in, again, I'll have to log off and log back in again. I will not see the all patients submodule. Now, this menu is pretty interesting. This menu on the left-hand side, as an admin, I can say, okay, I want to hide this completely. So I've already hidden contracts in there. I don't want to have contracts module showing up for anyone. So that's something that I'm hiding from at the top level. Even though I have allowed permission to that module, I can actually hide the module directly from here, completely from this place. I can also make these, if I don't like this, because I want patients to show up at the top. This is the drag and drop. I can drag this and I can move this at the top right here. And when I save this, you'll see patients is now in the left-hand menu is moved up third place, just like here. If you don't want to show a menu item, you just hide it. Just uncheck it and it'll hide the menu item. All right, now these arrows are the action arrows that take you to what you see on that sub. So when I click on, let's say, patients, you see I created that visible. This is, if I had multiple, like in records, you have multiple submodules or libraries, you'll see them all here. So again, you can make those from an administrative standpoint. We can make these also, the submodules also, visible or hidden. So you see these construction, insurance, facility permits, bills, all these on the left-hand side on the records, they're all here. So if I were to have donor come up top, I can move this also. I can say donor, I want to move it right here. If I save it, and if I go to records, you see donor is now on the top. This is what this is. So we go 2 levels deep, record level and then module level, library level. We don't go any deeper than that. We don't have 3rd level or 4th level. It's just 2 levels, module and then library. Now these move from and move to. What move from, if I check and say move from and move to for donor and move from and move to for construction. And if I save this, what happens now is that in the records, I have this donor, this guy, and I don't have anyone in construction. I now have the ability to right click and say move. This would have been disabled for this module if I did not check those boxes, which means now I can move items, these whole items between modules, from one module to the other. This is how I do them. If I go to insurance, because I don't have insurance as checked as a move to in the settings, if I click on it, let's see where I have any items, headquarters. Facility permits I did not check move from and move to. You see, these are grayed out. Move from and move to, move is grayed out, which means that I don't have move allowed from or to this module or submodule, sorry, library. So for example, in this case, because I allowed move from and move to, which means that if you check move from, I can only move items from this sub library over to any other library that I've move to allowed. So if I right click on this and I say move, it's going to ask me which library. When I go to records, I can say I want to move to construction because I've only allowed move to either these two items. So I say construction, and this item is gone from here, from donor, and it's now sitting in construction. You manually, if you want to move something, you just move from and move to, allow that, and just right click on the item and move it back, or move it to wherever you want to move it to. So you cannot move from this because the candidate folder doesn't have the move allowed. So first of all, I have to go and say, in the settings, I go into menu, I go into human resources, and the candidate folder, I can say move from. I allow move from and move to. So I say, okay, I want to allow them to be moved to employee folders. I also want to allow this to be active employee. So I do this. Now, if I go to human resources and the candidates, you have Priscilla Parjit. Now move is allowed. I say move, and I can now move them to employee folder or to the employee inactive folder, whichever one I want to move to. Now, there is this thing called child item. And child item is something which is a concept that you need to understand. I told when I said, if you look at this record, all right, we move something to construction. This is Hamid Gulgai. If you click on the item, you see it's only documents and tickets, which means that when you have documents, you drag the documents here, and the documents will go into this Hamid Gulgai's documents. But what if you wanted to have basically the concept of subfolders? If you wanted to have subfolders within this item. So within Hamid Gul's account, you wanted to have Hamid Gul's onboarding documents, Hamid Gul's resume, Hamid Gul's privacy documents, for example. You want to create those and you want to bundle them together. You can actually create those, but you cannot create it right now. You have to go in there and allow that particular library to have what we call child items. So if I allow in the construction, I allow this child item and I save it. Now when I go into records and go to construction and I go into Hamid Gul's account, you see this thing called items? I can now create a child item in this library. So it'll create an item, which is then you click on it, and then you can put that, bundle those documents in that item without a concept, understanding a concept called content type. So those of you who have actually worked with SharePoint, you know what the content type means. Content type means that whatever item you're going to be putting in, that's going to be, you'll have the option to select a content type. That's a predefined content type. And that predefined content type means that I can actually, that item will have name, amount. I can set up different fields for that item. So if I'm adding, for example, onboarding documents can be, the date this person was hired, the date this person interviewed. All those things will be part of the onboarding document field. So I can put those fields in there, custom fields. And I can have that item set up that way. So when I go in there and I say, okay, what type of item I'm putting in, I can say, okay, I'm putting in the onboarding, and then all those fields will automatically show up. Within that same field, I can then have a different type of item. So this is a different concept, and I will do a complete separate training on that separate concept. But I just wanted you guys to know that there is an item, and you can create sub-items in there with content types. Provider, this tab is a very interesting tab. This is where you have the option for creating a client-provider relationship. What that means is that Cobate, for example, is a provider, and we manage so many different clients. If you have a provider, as a provider, Cobate, and if you have, say, 100 clients, you can actually then create a relationship with each client of yours. And the client will create a relationship with Cobate. At that point, what happens is I can then, as a provider, I will have the ability to see all clients on here. And then the client will see Cobate on their side. And when the client opens up a ticket, they have to just go into their own BizTRAQ. They'll see Cobate and they'll click on a ticket and open up a new ticket, and it'll show up on your end. So in this case, when you're supporting so many different customers right now, the customers cannot create tickets. They have to call in or they have to send an email. In their case, customer just logs into their own BizTRAQ and opens up a ticket for Cobate. And when you update the ticket, the customer will see that ticket also directly. So that's what this client-provider relationship is, that you actually can create that as a ticket provider or ticket client. You can be a provider for one, and you can also be a client for the other. So Cobate is a provider, but Cobate can also be a client of TriAlta. So in that case, you can actually do both. Okay, so here I have Cobate. I'm in the Cobate production site, all right? Here's Cobate. And this one, I'm logged in as Metis. Metis is a client of Cobate. Metis has BizTRAQ and Cobate is BizTRAQ. So you, as support engineers, will be sitting in your Cobate BizTRAQ, and you'll be in all assignments. And you will see in the all assignments all these tickets that are coming in. Now, someone's sitting in Metis, and they say, okay, you know what? I want to create a ticket, but I don't want to create a ticket internally. I want to create a ticket for Cobate because it's a support ticket. I can go in and I say, I create a new ticket. Please fix my hurry. All right, you can do that. You can set up this, you can set up basic things, and you save and close. So what Metis has done right now is Metis just within their system, without getting out of their system, they just logged on and they said, hey, please, they just opened up a ticket for Cobate. When you come in here in Cobate, and you click on it, you will see this ticket pop up. You see this ticket pop up, and it says it's actually coming from all clients module. And all client module is where you'll see all the client modules. So you can now see, hey, this ticket was open, and who opened this ticket? It was opened by Metis Primary Care. So this is a ticket from Metis. So this all assignments gives you all the tickets. And if you go to all clients, it's only client that opened up the tickets, or the tickets that clients are communicating with. So now if you have 100 clients and each one of them have BizTRAQ, they will be able to open up tickets, and without getting out of system, you can then see the tickets, and whoever's working on a ticket, you can say, okay, this ticket is now assigned to, I have assigned it to me. I can actually assign this ticket to, let me assign it to, let's assign it to someone. Mushfiq, I'm going to assign it to you. Or I can assign it to multiple people also. Now that I've assigned this ticket to you, I can set the priorities. I can save and close. I can set type, internal type, because I haven't set it up yet. This is a, let's say this is a service ticket. Now this is done. You can now come in and say, okay, I'm going to add a note to this. I'm working on this ticket. And then you mark this external, or by default it says it's not marked as external, but you can mark this as external ticket. External ticket note means that the customer will also see this note. If I don't mark this ticket external or this note, then the customer won't see this note. So I save it and I save and close. All right, I've done this on my end. Now someone at the customer end goes and looks at this. No, they don't see a note because I did not mark that note as external. But I come in here and I now say, you know what, I'm going to add another note, or I can even change this note. I can say this is an external note. Now, in the client, what you can also do is you can set it up where the notifications will be as you update the ticket, the client will automatically receive email notifications as the ticket is updated. So that's what this provider-client relationship thing does for ticket providers. So you create a provider relationship, you create a ticket relationship, sorry, the ticket providers and ticket clients. So when you ticket provider, you go in there and you add a client. When you are ticket client, you're going to go in and add the provider information. So the way we do key exchange when we're setting up firewalls and VPNs between two customers or two locations, this is exactly the kind of thing we do. You have to exchange keys. You have to exchange your information before that relationship is established. So if you want to create a ticket client, as you can see that I've created this client and there's a consumer key and a provider key. And then you go in there and then you create the same thing on the provider side, on the client side. So when you go into client, I go into settings, I look at the provider, and you can see that I have created a ticket provider, which is Cobate. So I'm actually a client of both Cobate and SHBC, because SHBC is the billing company for Metis Primary Care. So they are now exchanging keys between the two. And once they exchange the keys, now I can open up tickets from this for specialty health for billing, and I can open support tickets for Cobate. So what you have to do first, from a client side, you have to send whoever is going to be your provider, you have to send them this information. Hey, this is my company code. That's the first thing you do. You send them Metis-33622. So when you send that over to them, they will go in there, and this is Cobate. So Cobate will get that code because you want to add Metis. You go in there, and then you put the company code in there. So as soon as I put the company code in there, the client name would automatically pop up, and you can then say, okay, which company it is. You can select the group and the company also, or where it's going to be saved, and then you can have a default assignee. Who is the default assignee that you want to assign the ticket to? So once you do that, this thing pops up, and there's a provider key and a consumer key. So you just copy the key and then send it over to the client then, and the client will then say, okay, this is my. Then on this side, when the client adds, sorry, where am I? The client will be adding a provider. All what they need is the company code of the provider, just like that, and then client name and the key that you just send them. And as soon as you do that, that's when the connection is established between a client and the provider. Now you see the submodule client and provider, same concept, but what you do is you can actually go ahead and share a complete submodule between a client and a provider. So if I wanted to have my library, my records library, where I have all my invoices, and I want to share this whole invoice library with a accountant, for example, an accountant has BizTRAQ, I can do the same thing, and the entire library will be available to the accountant. So then they just come in and they can actually see this entire library, and they don't have, so you don't have to really send data back and forth. You say, okay, you're on BizTRAQ, I'll just share my entire library with you. You just go into my library, a finance library, and just look at all my records and see what you need to do. Once a library is shared, what happens is that you automatically will see external customer libraries, and all those libraries will show up. So let's go into SHBC, because SHBC, I've shared a library of Metis. So you see, they see something called shared libraries. So I logged in as Jemiah because I've shared the library with Jemiah. And I see these libraries, and under Metis, so automatically, whoever their clients are, as they share their libraries, their customer name is going to keep on show up here, and they see billing. So when they click on billing, they see all the billing folders that I had shared with them. If they go into Metis and insurance contract, they'll see the insurance contracts that I've shared with them. Yeah, so I went in and I shared insurance contract, this library, and the billing library. SHBC, when they log in, they will see shared libraries from all the clients. And when they click on it, the client name will pop up, because this is a demo. This demo client, this is your HR. I've shared as a demo, and this is the HR that's shared. Under Metis client, they'll see I've shared two libraries in there, which is billing and insurance contracts. So now they don't have to do anything. They can actually put documents in there from their side. They just go into the library, and they say, you know what? Let's go into Metis under billing. We did not give them add access. We only gave them access to view. But they can click on it. They can see all these documents, and they can actually edit the documents and drag them and put them in there also. So all what they have to do is they just have to go in there. I'm just going to drag this document here. Business associate agreement, all right? I'm just going to drag it in there. But they can drag things in there, and then the customer will see the documents. Or if the customer adds documents in there, like in this case, if I add this business associate, see, it actually showed up here, by the way, as soon as I added the document. And when they go in there, that's the document right there. And it says uploaded party, provider uploaded it. So it actually does say it's not a client. Anything that doesn't say client, a provider uploaded the document. So the client can then see, hey, by the way, you put a new document in there. So you can share documents. You can share your entire libraries with each other without actually getting out of the system, without emailing it. It's a very good way to, if you have tax attorneys, you have legal documents, you can easily share these with those your clients, as long as the client is on BizTRAQ. So if you go to forms, I have defined patient forms and these two as forms, external content. Now what I can do is I can then start creating items in there. And in each item, I can put documents in there. And as I put those documents in there, I can now say, okay, for this library, save to. Where am I saving these documents when someone uses those? So the thing that this is that I can now create multiple forms, PDFs, and create different things like new patient forms or employment forms or different forms. I can create those, and I can then publish those links. This is something called a send link. This has a link, and you can publish that link. So when I go send that link over to someone who's applying for a position, and when they go to that link, patient form, they enter the name, they say next, they will then see those documents, and they click on the document, they can fill the document out, save it. And when you save it, the document gets saved directly into the place where you've defined where the documents are being saved. So all the applicants, you can send them to this new applicant forms. They go to this secure page. They don't have to log in. They just type in the name, and all the documents will show up, and they can then go ahead and submit those documents, and they'll come in directly into the system. I can email this link to me or someone, whoever I want to apply, or I can put this link on the website. So let's go in here. You see that this says new employee application form. So I'm a candidate applying for a position at Cobate. And so HR will send this over to you. And then here you can say, okay, this is the new candidate. My name is Rafiq Hazi, and I'm applying for this position. I say next. This thing comes up. Here's the employment application form. I click on it. Our built-in PDF editor comes up. I start putting my information in, whatever information I want to put in. I put all the information in. I answer, are you a citizen? Have you ever worked for this company? So I do this. I've got a second page. I go in there. I fill out the second page, whatever I want to fill out. I go to the third page. I go in here. I click on this. I sign this. I say this. I just put a date in there. And all I have to do is I have to say close. It says, so you want to save your change before you? Yes. When I come in here, this new employee application form that I put up there, it says save to, and I'm saving it, I think, to HR, to all the applicants. So it will show up just like this over here. It just Rafiq Hazi ES test, and my application, employment application, will automatically show up. If I click on it, you'll see all the filled out application. That's what it does. So that's what this external content is, that you can actually create your own PDFs, you can create your own documents, you can create your own library, and then you can send them out. And as you put those documents in there, each individual library can actually be, each individual item can be a different type of form that people need to fill out, and they can be saved into the system. So patients can fill out patient forms remotely, employees can fill out employment forms. You can have all sorts of things in there. And So that's on the settings page. I just went through settings. As we are adding more and more things in the settings, all these things are going to show up here in the settings page. The users page is where you add users. You can create users. You go in there, you can create a new user. And when you create a new user, you can create user, you can assign roles, you can assign groups and permissions. You can change password here. But one of the other things you can do in the users module, that you can create user-based templates. And if you have a template or any user that you want to copy, you can right click on it and say, hey, I want to copy this user, or I want to clone this user. So once you clone the user, same permissions, same groups, everything is added. And all you have is you get to create a new user, but everything else is the same. All the permissions, all the modules that they've access to, all those things can be the same. So you don't have to you have to go in and recreate and set the permissions up. Another way to handle that is by creating templates. So like we've created in here, I think I've got a front desk template and a medical assistant template. So whenever a new medical assistant comes in, all I got to do is just right click on it and say clone user, and I can clone a user based on that, on the medical assistant. If I have a front desk user, I just clone the front desk template. One thing I did not mention was that once you create any item in the system, I quickly want to just show this to you. And this is a question that most of you ask. How do I do this where I can set things up like in here? So insurance, I go into properties. Now each library has their own settings and their own things. You can change the access control for the library. You can change the override group. I'll talk about this in the next one. Fields, you can change the name of these fields. You can add custom fields to it. You can change the views again. You can, what you want to see, what you don't want to see when you're looking at this. And there's a thing called workflows. You can set up workflows for each library, and you can set it up where it actually, if you have a record type, or if the status changes or the record type changes, then you can do certain things within the application. That if the status changes to, if you change the status to something else, you say renewal, for example, then you can set it up where it can either send an email to someone, it can actually go ahead and do, it can move items around, it can do things. So that's where the workflows come in, that you go into the item, you go into the library, and then you set up a workflow on that library. So anytime an item changes status or it changes the record type, you can define what that should do, that workflow should do. On Metis, I have some rules set up. This is a rule called move to inactive. And it says, if I edit this and I'll show you, this is what it says. This is the workflow name, move to inactive, that if the employment status is a no-show, if it says no-show, then move and change field value. And if you look at item move, you click on this, it says move item and change field. So it says move item from HR to employee folders inactive. And change the field value, do not show up, and description no show. So what happens is, as soon as this condition is met, that the employment status changes to no show, the entire record will be moved from in the human resources to employee folders inactive. But you can also do email. If something happens, you can say, okay, I want to send an email, or I want to create a new review assignment, because something happens that I want to set up an assignment where I set it up where it says, if it's if something happens, employment status is please hire this employee, then send an email, create an assignment for Mehdi to please approve this candidate. So when you do that, it'll create a ticket, and it'll create a review assignment for Mehdi saying, hey, Mehdi, there's a new ticket for you. You need to approve this candidate for hire. And Mehdi will review that. Mehdi will review all the documents, and then Mehdi will approve or reject the hiring process. So it's a complete end-to-end system. And as you can see on the surface, it may seem very simple or straightforward, but you can do so many things with the system.